The new car was shiny and red, sitting in my parents' driveway like it belonged in a movie. I held the steering wheel tightly, my knuckles turning white, while Lauren spun around the car, squealing like she'd just hit the jackpot. Maybe she had, with my money. My name's Jacqueline, and I just watched my sister steal the future I worked so hard for. Isn't she beautiful? Lauren said, running her freshly manicured fingers over the car's hood. I got such a great deal. The salesman basically gave it to me. I stepped out of my plain BMW, still wearing my work clothes after a 10-hour shift at the financial firm. My phone buzzed again, probably another alert about my bank account being overdrawn. I'd been ignoring those messages, hoping it was some kind of mistake. Lauren, I said, trying to stay calm. Where did you get the money for this? She flipped her styled hair, which looked just like Mom's. Oh, don't start the lecture. Mom and Dad helped me figure it out. Right, guys? Our parents stood behind her, smiling and holding champagne glasses. Mom gave me that look, the one that said, "Please don't ruin the mood." She needed a reliable car, sweetheart, Mom said, walking over. We just used that emergency account you set up for the family. My heart dropped. That wasn't an emergency fund. That was my house down payment. $50,000. Everything I had saved. Don't be so dramatic, Lauren said, rolling her eyes. You're good with money. You'll save it again. And you always say family comes first. Family comes first, I said, pulling out my phone and showing her my bank balance. You left me with $150. And you didn't even ask me. Dad cleared his throat. Now, Jacqueline, your sister has job interviews coming up. She needs to make a good impression. I laughed bitterly. What interviews? The ones after the 3 jobs she quit this year? Or the degree she never finished? That's not fair. Lauren burst into tears, right on cue. Mom, she's being mean, she cried. Mom quickly wrapped her arms around her. Jacqueline, please. You know your sister's been going through a hard time. We need to support her. You've always been the strong one. The strong one. The responsible one. The one who paid the bills, kept the secrets, fixed everything. I had been doing that for years. I was 14 years old, helping Lauren get ready for school, while Mom slept off another headache. You're right, I said quietly as I took out my phone. I am the strong one. Mom smiled. I knew you'd understand. And I'm also the one whose name is on all the family bank accounts, I added, dialing the bank. The one who's been paying off Dad's credit cards since he retired early. The one who used her savings as backup for your emergency loan. Dad froze with his champagne glass halfway to his mouth. What are you doing? Yes, hello, I said into the phone. This is Jacqueline Mathau. I'd like to close account number 556148 right away. Yes, I understand it will affect other accounts. That's what I want. Jacqueline, stop. Mom tried to grab my phone, but I stepped back. You can't do this, she said. Actually, I can. It's my money. I looked straight at Lauren. Enjoy the car, sis. I hope it was worth it. You're just jealous, she yelled as I walked to my car. Jealous that Mom and Dad love me more. That I'm living my best life while you're stuck being boring. I stopped, my hand on the car door. You know what's funny about karma, Lauren? It doesn't always wait. Sometimes it shows up right away when someone deserves it. What does that mean? She snapped. I smiled as I got into my car. You'll see in about 96 hours, give or take, when those credit cards stop working. In my rearview mirror, I saw Dad frantically making calls while Mom hugged Lauren, who was crying. They looked just like the perfect family photo on their wall. Mom and Dad on either side of their favorite daughter. The photo I paid for last Christmas. Just like I paid for everything else. Not anymore. I pulled over a couple blocks away, hands still shaking, and called someone else. Scott, it's me. Remember when you told me to stop helping them? Well, I finally did something big. He picked up right away. About time. Want to grab a drink and tell me everything? I looked back at my parents' house. Lauren's shiny new car still sat in the driveway, glowing in the sunset. Yes, I said. And bring your laptop. We're going to need it. As I drove away, the sun dipped behind me. I was done being their backup plan. Let Lauren enjoy her little kingdom made of credit. It was about to fall. They say revenge is best served cold. But I was just getting started. For days, Scott said, sliding his laptop across the bar. That's how long the system takes to close the accounts and start the chain reaction. I stared into my gin and tonic, the ice clinking gently. I slowly moved the drink in my hand. They've called 25 times since yesterday, I said. I stopped counting the texts. Let me see, Scott said, scrolling through my phone. He read some messages out loud. Jacqueline, please call us right away. It's an emergency. Your sister is crying herself sick. We raised you better than this. Oh, that's rich, Scott muttered. Did they really raise me better? I said, taking another sip. You know what I remember from growing up? Making Lauren's lunch while Mom was lying down. Helping Dad with the checkbook when I was 14 because he couldn't figure out why the account was always empty. Being told I couldn't go to the college I wanted because Lauren needed braces. And now, Scott said, typing quickly on his laptop, they took your house down payment. His fingers flew across the keyboard. Look at this. They've been taking money from your linked accounts for years. Small amounts, $30 here, $60 there. But it adds up. Even with the dim bar lights, I could see the long list of transactions growing on a screen. They thought I wouldn't notice, I said, because I never did before. My phone buzzed again. Mom's name popped up on the screen. You should answer it, Scott said. They need to know this isn't a game anymore. I took a deep breath and picked up the call. Hello? Jacqueline. Mom's voice was shaking. The bank called. They're saying something about credit lines being canceled and accounts frozen. What did you do? Exactly what I told you I'd do, I said. I closed my accounts. But your father's credit cards aren't working. We have bills to pay. Lauren needs. I cut her off. What about what I need, Mom? Like the house I've been saving for since I was 24. That's different, she said quickly. We're family. Family doesn't steal from each other, I said. We didn't steal, she shouted. We borrowed. You know we'll pay you back. I laughed. Will you? Because I looked at Dad's credit report. I'm still listed as an authorized user. He's maxed out on 7 cards. And I've been making the minimum payments on them for 3 years. Silence. Then she whispered, Jacqueline, please just come over. We can talk about this. Sure, I said, finishing my drink. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Scott raised an eyebrow. You're really going? They need to see my face, I said, grabbing my purse. When their world finally falls apart. You coming? 20 minutes later, I walked into my parents' living room. Lauren was on the couch, her mascara running down her face. Dad was pacing near the window, phone to his ear. The bank won't move, he said as he hung up. They're calling in all the credit lines by Sunday. Something about unlinked collateral? That would be my savings account, I said, sitting down and crossing my legs. The one Lauren emptied for her shiny new car. This isn't funny, Lauren shouted. They're saying I could lose the car. Do you know how embarrassing that would be? Almost as embarrassing, I replied, as having to tell my real estate agent I lost the down payment for my future home. I kept my voice calm. Or maybe it's just as embarrassing as realizing my family has been using me like their own ATM for years. We never wanted to hurt you, Mom said, crying. It's just things have been tight since your father retired at 56 with no savings. After I told him it was a terrible idea, I added. Dad's face turned red. Now listen here, young lady. No, you listen, I said, standing up. For years, I've cleaned up your messes, paid your bills, and kept your secrets. And how do you thank me? By helping Lauren steal the one thing I've been saving for, my house. But you're so good with money, Lauren cried. You can save it again. You're right. I am good with money, I said, walking toward the door. That's why I'm cutting you all off. For good. You can't do this to us, Mom yelled, grabbing my arm. I gently moved her hand away. Parents are supposed to protect their children, not use them like a money backup. And they definitely don't steal their dreams just to fund another child's bad choices. Jacqueline, please, Dad said, his voice shaking. Check your mail tomorrow, I said as I opened the door. The bank is sending official letters about your defaulted accounts. Oh, and Lauren might want to keep that car in the garage. Repo men work at night. I closed the door behind me with a soft click. Outside, Scott was waiting in his car, the engine running. You okay? He asked as I buckled in. I looked up and saw my mom in the window, already on the phone, probably calling her sister to ask for money. No, I answered honestly. But I will be. For the first time in my life, I will be. They're outside again, Scott said, looking out my apartment window. Your mom's crying in the car. Lauren's pressing every buzzer in the building. I didn't look up from my laptop. It's been 4 days. Even the neighbors are starting to complain. My phone lit up with another text from Lauren. You're destroying this family. Actually, a new voice said from the kitchen, they're doing a great job of that all by themselves. It was Helen, my best friend and realtor. She walked over holding 4 cups of coffee. The repo guys picked up Lauren's car this morning, she said with a grin. I might have recorded it. Show me, I said, reaching for her phone. The video played. Lauren was screaming while 3 quiet men hooked her red sports car to a tow truck. Mom tried to block the truck with her body. Dad waved papers at them, looking desperate. Those papers, I said, watching closely. Would you like me to continue rewriting the rest of the scene too? I pointed at the papers. Those are probably the loan documents they signed using my name without permission. I found out yesterday it's identity theft. Helen let out a long whistle. That's not just karma anymore. That's a crime. The buzzer rang again. Lauren's voice came through the intercom. I know you're in there. You can't ignore us forever. Watch me, I muttered. But Helen was already walking to the intercom. Listen up, you spoiled brat, she snapped into the speaker. Your sister isn't coming to save you anymore. Try getting a job instead of calling a lawyer. You'll need both. Scott nearly choked on his coffee. Wow, Helen. Harsh, but true. She turned back to me. By the way, did you file those identity theft charges? I'm doing it tomorrow morning, I said, pulling up the files on my laptop. I had the documents ready, proof they used my name to get loans I never approved. The buzzer started again, this time nonstop. Now Mom's voice joined Lauren's, both of them talking over each other, begging. That's it, Helen said, grabbing her purse. I'm calling the police. This is harassment. Wait, I said, standing up. I'll handle it. I took the elevator down, heart pounding but step steady. When I reached the lobby, I saw Lauren's tear-streaked face pressed against the glass, with Mom behind her. Lauren rushed inside as soon as I opened the door. Do you even know what you've done? She cried. The bank froze everything. Dad might get charged with fraud. That's what happens when you forge loan documents, I said calmly. We didn't forge anything, Mom said quickly. We just used your name as a guarantor. You always helped us before. Always helped. I felt something snap inside me. You mean like when I was 14, waking up at 4 a.m. to tutor Lauren because you couldn't? Or when I worked 2 jobs in college while Lauren dropped out of 3 schools, using my money? That's not fair. Lauren stepped closer. You're just jealous. Jealous of what? I cut her off. That Mom and Dad love you more? They can keep their love. I'm done paying for it. Please, Mom said, grabbing my hand. We can fix this. Just tell the bank it was all a mistake. I pulled my hand away. Like when I was 11 and you took my birthday money from Grandma to pay for Lauren's dance lessons. Or last Christmas, when Dad borrowed my credit card so she could go on her spring break trip. That was different, Mom tried to explain. No, I said coldly. Those were practice runs. You've been testing my limits my whole life, seeing how much I'd give before I finally broke. Well, you did it. I'm done. Lauren's face fell. But you're my sister. You're supposed to protect me. I did protect you for 31 years, I said. I protected you from facing the real world. But not anymore. A police car pulled up outside. Helen stepped out of her car, right behind it. Miss, the officer said, walking toward me. We got a call about harassment, the police officer said. That's them, Helen pointed. They've been bothering my friend for days. Mom's face turned pale. Jacqueline, you wouldn't. I would, I said, stepping back into the building. And if you come here again, I'll add it to the identity theft charges I'm filing tomorrow. Identity theft. The officer's face turned serious. Ma'am, I need both of you to step away from the building. I watched through the lobby windows as the officer walked them to their car. Lauren looked back once, her face filled with anger and fear. Mom didn't look back at all. Upstairs, Scott and Helen were waiting with fresh coffee and worried looks. They're gone, I said as I dropped onto the couch. Maybe not forever, but at least for now. Helen sat next to me. You know what the best kind of revenge is? Living well. I guessed. Nope, she smiled. Buying that dream house you were saving for. Only bigger and better. And guess what? I just found one that fits your budget, now that you're not supporting 4 people. For the first time in days, I smiled. Show me. You won't believe this, Scott said. His laptop gave off a soft blue light across the kitchen table. While I was checking those old joint accounts, I found something. It was past midnight. We'd been going through financial records for hours. Empty takeout boxes were scattered on the table, proof of our little investigation session. Look at this, Scott said as I leaned over his shoulder. See these transfers? Every month for the past 4 years, small amounts of money have been moving from your savings into an account I've never seen before. That's not possible, I said. I watched my accounts carefully. They did it through that old joint account you opened with your mom in college, the one you forgot about. They've been using it like a hidden tunnel. His fingers flew over the keyboard. My phone buzzed, another message from Lauren. Dad's having chest pains because of you. Hope you're happy. Don't answer her, Scott said, still focused on screen. Wait, look at this. He pulled up a web of money transfers. The lines stretched out across the screen like a spider's web, showing cash moving from my accounts through different places and always ending up in Lauren's pocket or paying off my parents' credit cards. $400,000, Scott whispered. That's how much they've taken over the years. My head spun. I grabbed the counter to keep from falling. That can't be, I said. The numbers don't lie, he said, showing me more files. And there's something else. Your name is on Lauren's car loan. You're listed as a co-signer. I never signed anything, I said. Then we've got them. This is real fraud, Scott said, grabbing his phone. A sudden knock at the door made us both jump. I peeked through the peephole. It was Helen again, holding a large envelope. You need to see this, she said as she rushed in. I was checking the property records for that house. We looked it up, and guess what showed up? Helen said, your parents listed you as a guarantor on their condo refinance last week. What? I grabbed the papers from her. My signature was on them, but it was clearly forged. They're getting desperate, Scott said. The banks are closing in, and they're using your name to stay above water. Just then, my phone rang. It was my boss, Justin, calling at midnight. Jacqueline. His voice was serious. Sorry for the late call, but there's something you need to know. Your sister applied for a job here. She used you as a reference, but her application has some problems. What kind of problems? She says she has a finance degree and 4 years of experience. She also wrote that you could confirm it. I let out a dry, humorless laugh. She dropped out after 1 semester. That's what I thought, Justin said, papers shuffling in the background. Jacqueline, with your position here, if she's lying, we need to handle it carefully. I sat up straighter. Justin, there's something I need to tell you about my family. 20 minutes later, I hung up. Scott and Helen looked at me, waiting. Well, Helen asked. Justin's reporting her for lying on the application, I said, sinking into the chair. And he gave me tomorrow off to file the police reports. Good, Scott said, spinning his laptop around. Because there's more. Remember that private school Lauren went to for senior year? The one that said they waived her tuition? I nodded. They didn't. Your parents used your name as a guarantor again. You've been paying for it through automatic withdrawals for the last 7 years. Anger surged through me. So, that's why they told me to keep the joint account open. They said it was just for emergencies. Yeah, Helen said, shaking her head. The emergency was their lifestyle, and Lauren being completely useless. My phone buzzed again. A text from Mom. Your father is in the ER. His blood pressure is dangerously high. Please, Jacqueline. If you ever loved us, don't answer, Helen said, grabbing my phone. They're trying to pull you back in again. I know, I said, pacing. But what if he really is sick? Then that's their problem, Scott said firmly. They made their choices. For years. Another message popped up, this time from Lauren. If anything happens to Dad, it's your fault. I'll never forgive you. I took the phone from Helen and typed back quickly. If anything happens to Dad, it's because of the choices you all made, choices that now have real consequences. What are you going to do? Helen asked gently. I looked at the stack of documents on the table, proof of forged signatures, fake loans, and years of financial abuse. All laid out in black and white. I'm going to do what I should have done a long time ago, I said, picking up my phone. I'm calling the police. Then I'm calling every bank they've lied to using my name. They're your family, Scott said quietly. No, I replied. They were. But real family doesn't do this. I'm calling now, I said, dialing. They're not just family, they're criminals who happen to share my DNA. And it's time they learned that karma wears a badge. The lights at the police station were bright and made everything look cold and too white. Detective Victoria laid out the documents on her desk, flipping through each page with raised eyebrows. This is a lot, she said, looking at me. You're saying this has been happening for years? I didn't realize how long until yesterday, I said, handing her another folder. These are the loan papers with my forged signature. I never signed any of them. And your parents and sister did this? She asked. Yes, I replied. My voice didn't shake this time. They used my name to get loans, open credit cards, and even co-signed a car. The detective made notes, her expression serious. This is major fraud, she said. Once we move forward with these charges, there's no turning back. Are you sure you want to do this? My phone buzzed again. Another message from Lauren. Dad's getting out of the hospital. No thanks to you. Mom's crying nonstop. How can you be so heartless? I showed the text to the detective. This is why I'm sure. They're still trying to guilt me. She nodded kindly. Sadly, I see this more often than you'd think. Family financial abuse is very real. Just then, the door opened. My boss, Justin, walked in holding a thick manila envelope. Sorry I'm late, he said, taking a seat. But I brought something important. He laid out more papers on the detective's desk. Lauren's fake job application was just the beginning. There were job forms, school records, and loan applications, all using my name as a reference or cosigner, with fake details. She's been applying to jobs all over the city, Justin explained. She's been saying you'd confirm her fake experience and education. Some companies are already launching investigations. Detective Victoria's pen started moving faster. These changes everything. We're now looking at multiple cases of fraud, identity theft, and financial abuse. My phone rang again. It was Mom. The detective nodded. Go ahead. Put it on speaker. I answered. Jacqueline, please. Mom's voice sounded weak and scared. The bank is threatening to press charges against your father. They're saying it's loan fraud. You have to help us. I can't, Mom. Not anymore. But we're family, she cried. After everything we've done for you. Everything you've done? I let out a bitter laugh. You mean stealing my identity, faking my signature, and draining my accounts? We didn't mean to hurt you, she said. We just needed help, and you're so good with money. Mrs. Mathau, the detective cut in, speaking clearly. This is Detective Victoria from the Financial Crimes Unit, she said. I suggest you stop talking and call a lawyer right away. The line went dead. Well, that should give them something to think about, the detective said as she gathered the papers. We'll begin processing everything now. With this much proof, we should have arrest warrants by morning. Arrest warrants? My stomach twisted. They're actually going to be arrested? This is felony fraud, Justin said gently. What did you think would happen? Before I could answer, my phone buzzed nonstop with messages from Lauren. What did you do? The police are calling Mom and Dad. I can't believe you'd betray us like this. You're dead to me. The last message was a photo of us as kids, me helping Lauren with homework. We were both smiling. Under the photo, she wrote, "Remember when you were actually a good sister?" This is what they do, I told Detective Victoria, holding up the phone. Emotional guilt. They take, and when you stand up for yourself, they make you feel like you're the bad one. It's manipulation. She nodded. Would you also like to press charges for harassment? Yes, I said, surprised by how sure I sounded. Yes, I would. Justin gave my shoulder a light squeeze. You're doing the right thing. They need to be held accountable. I know, I said as I stood up and gathered my things. I just wish it didn't hurt this much. One more thing, Detective Victoria said as I reached the door. Please save any future messages, texts, calls, emails. We'll need it for the case. They won't stop, will they? I asked. Not until they're forced to, she said, handing me her card. But that's what restraining orders are for. Outside the police station, the sun was rising. My phone buzzed again, one last text from Dad. The police are here. How could you do this to your own parents? I typed back, the same way you did it to your daughter, one signature at a time. Then I blocked all their numbers. Justin stood waiting by his car to take me to work. Ready? He asked. I looked back at the police station. Detective Victoria was probably already preparing the paperwork. Soon, my family would learn that karma doesn't just knock. It can show up wearing a badge and carrying handcuffs. Yeah, I said, getting into the car. I'm ready. They were arrested this morning, Helen said, dropping a local newspaper on my desk. The headline read, Local family charged in identity theft case. I pushed the paper away. I don't want to see it. You need to, she insisted, flipping to the article. They're already trying to twist the story. Your mom gave an interview saying you're mentally unstable and misunderstood what it means to support family. Classic narcissist move, Scott said, walking into my office. When caught, they try to make the victim look crazy. My office phone lit up again. Another call from an unknown number. They've been trying to get around your blocks all week, Helen said. Watch this. I put the phone on speaker. Hello, Jacqueline? It was my Aunt Christina. How could you do this to your own parents? They're heartbroken. Lauren's reputation is ruined. Their reputation? I kept my voice calm. You mean the one where they stole hundreds of thousands of dollars from me? Where they faked my signature? Where they committed serious crimes? They're family, she said. Family helps each other. Really? I said, flipping through papers on my desk. Because I got proof right here that they used your name too. Want me to tell you how much debt they put under your identity? The lines suddenly went dead. Boom, Helen grinned. That shut her up. My email pinged. A message from Detective Victoria. Subject. Thought you should see this. Attached was a screenshot of Lauren's latest social media post. My sister destroyed our family because she's jealous of my success. Now she's trying to send our parents to jail. Please share our GoFundMe to help with legal costs. Oh, no, she didn't, Helen said, grabbing her phone. I'm reporting that fundraiser for fraud. Don't worry about it, Scott said while typing on his laptop. I already did. And I sent screenshots to the prosecutor. They're claiming they're broke in court while begging for money online. My desk phone rang again. It was Justin. Jacqueline, come to my office. There's something you need to see. When I got there, Justin had more papers spread across his desk. Your sister's been busy, he said. She tried to open credit cards at 7 different banks. She used your job title as proof, and when that didn't work, she used our company's name. She what? I said, shocked. It gets worse, he said, handing me a letter. She applied for a job at our biggest competitor. Said she was a junior analyst here, and used you as her reference again. I'll add it to the list of fraud charges, I said, grabbing my phone. No need, he said, smiling. I already did. He leaned back in his chair. But that's not the only reason I called you in. The board saw how you handled all of this, and they were impressed. They're offering you a promotion. Senior risk analyst. I blinked.
What?
You found fraud in your own family and had the strength to report it. That's the kind of honesty we need in risk management. Back in my office, Helen and Scott were waiting. Well, Helen asked, eyes wide. I got promoted. Yes, she cheered, hugging me. Told you karma works both ways.
Just then my phone buzzed.
It was an email from my parents' lawyer. Your parents are willing to take a plea deal, but they're asking if you'll write a letter to the judge asking for a lighter sentence. Delete it, Scott said right away. No, I said, already typing. Dear Mr. Gregory, my parents and sister committed financial fraud over many years. They stole my identity and took hundreds of thousands of dollars. They didn't show any regret until they were caught. Even now, they're trying to twist the story and make me the villain. I will not be writing a letter asking for a lighter sentence. Instead, I'll be sending a victim statement that explains every time they faked my signature, every dollar they stole, and every way they tried to ruin my name when I finally stood up for myself. They want to play games with the legal system? Fine, game on. Regards, Jacqueline. Savage, Helen whispered as she read over my shoulder. No, I said, hitting send. Just honest. A moment later, my phone buzzed with a message from Detective Victoria. Your parents' house just went into foreclosure. They're being evicted next week. I stared at the screen, thinking of all the Thursdays we spent in that house. Dinners, holidays, birthdays. All fake. All paid for with stolen money and lies. You okay? Scott asked gently. I will be, I said, looking out the office window. The city stretched out below me. Somewhere out there, my family was finally facing real consequences for the first time in their lives. You know what's funny? I said. They always called me the responsible one. The boring one. The one who had to help everyone else shine. And now, I'm the one with the promotion, the good credit, and a clear conscience. I turned back to my desk. They can keep their drama. I've got work to do. Speaking of work, Helen said, opening her tablet, there's a house that just went up for sale. It's perfect for a newly promoted senior risk analyst. I smiled. Show me. The courtroom felt smaller than I imagined. My parents sat at the defendant's table, looking tired and worn down in their formal clothes. Lauren slouched behind them in the gallery, glaring at me like she could burn holes through me. All rise, the Jonathan said. Detective Victoria gently squeezed my hand as I stood. You ready? She asked. I nodded and held on to my victim impact statement, a 4-page letter that took me weeks to write. Every word held years of pain I had kept hidden. The state versus April and Walter Matthau, the judge began. But before he could go further, there was noise at the courtroom door. My parents' lawyer rushed in and whispered something to them. Mom's face crumbled. Dad dropped his head. Your Honor, their lawyer said, standing, my clients wish to change their plea. They're pleading guilty to all charges. Lauren gasped from the back. Mom? Dad? No. The judge looked at them over his glasses. You understand this means there will be no trial, no chance to defend yourselves? Dad nodded slowly. We understand. Very well, the judge said, shuffling some papers. Before sentencing, we will hear the victim's statement. Miss Matthau. I walked to the front of the courtroom. My heels echoed on the marble floor. My hands shook a little, but I stood tall. Your Honor, I began. I've spent weeks trying to count the financial damage my family caused me. Every stolen dollar, every fake loan, every account they opened in my name. But the real cost, that's harder to measure. Mom started to cry, but I didn't stop. How do you measure the pain of betrayal? How do you explain what it feels like to find out that every time your parents said, I love you, what they really meant was, I love what I can take from you? That's not true. Lauren suddenly stood up. Miss, the judge said firmly, sit down or be removed. I turned to face my family. You always said family means giving up everything for each other. But that wasn't true. What you really taught me was that family means finding someone easy to take from, someone who won't fight back. Jacqueline, please, Mom said, reaching out. We can still fix this. No, Mom, I said. We can't. Because you're not sorry for what you did. You're just sorry you got caught. The judge cleared his throat. Given the guilty plea and how serious these crimes are, I'm ready to give the sentence. Wait. Dad stood up. Your Honor, we did it for our daughter. Which one? I asked softly. The one you took everything from or the one you gave everything to? The judge slammed his gavel. Mr. Mathau, sit down. Based on the seriousness and how long this went on, I sentence both of you to 6 years in state prison, with a chance for parole after 3. You must also pay back everything you stole. Lauren started crying loudly. This is all your fault, she yelled at me. I hate you, Miss Mathau, the judge said, looking at her. You have your own trial next week, for fraud and identity theft. Save your shouting for then. Outside the courtroom, reporters waited with cameras and microphones. Helen and Scott stood close to me like bodyguards. Miss Mathau, how does it feel sending your parents to prison? One reporter asked. I didn't send them anywhere, I said calmly. Their own choices did. Jacqueline, Mom called out as officers walked them past me. We did all of this for you kids.
No, Mom, I said.
You did it to us. That's not the same. Dad wouldn't even look at me. Lauren tried to rush at me, but their lawyer stopped her. You're dead to me, she shouted.
Funny, I said.
Because I've never felt more alive. Detective Victoria walked over with a small security team. Let's get you out of here, she said. Your sister's getting a little unstable. In the parking lot, Scott opened the car door for me. Want to grab a drink? He asked. Actually, I said, pulling out my phone and showing him an email. I have a house closing to go to. Helen's face lit up. The one we saw last week? That's the one, I smiled. Looks like karma has good timing. My parents lose their house the same day I buy mine. Jacqueline. Lauren's voice yelled from across the parking lot. She'd broken free from their lawyer. You can't do this. Where are Mom and Dad supposed to live when they get out? Not my problem, I called back. Try getting a job instead of asking for handouts. I heard Walmart's hiring. As we drove away, I looked in the rearview mirror. The officers were putting my parents into the prison van. Lauren stood alone on the courthouse steps, crying and yelling into her phone, her mascara running. You okay? Scott asked softly. I thought about the house waiting for me.
The new job.
The freedom. You know what? I said, smiling. For the first time in my life, I really am. He smiled. We've got a house closing to get to, ready to start your new life. I looked at the road ahead. It was wide and clear. More than ready, I said. Let's go home. Last box, Scott said, placing it in my new kitchen. Sunlight poured through the big windows, lighting up the granite counters I had fallen in love with during the tour. I still can't believe this is mine, I said, running my hand over the smooth surface. All mine. Better believe it. Helen cheered, walking in with a bottle of champagne. This calls for a celebration. First night in your new house. My phone buzzed with a news alert. Lauren's court sentence had just been announced. I clicked the link. Local woman gets 4 years for identity theft. Lauren Mathau, 25, was sentenced today for several counts of fraud. Don't, Helen said, gently taking my phone. This is your moment. No more family drama.
Just then, the doorbell rang.
It was Detective Victoria, holding a folder. Sorry to interrupt moving day, she said as she stepped inside.
But I thought you'd want to see this.
Your parents tried to file an appeal.
I sighed.
Of course they did. It was denied, she added, handing me the folder. Let me guess, they said they were only trying to help their kids? Actually, she said with a smirk, they blamed you. Claimed you gave them permission for everything. I laughed. Of course they did. The judge didn't believe a word of it, she said. Speaking of people making excuses, Scott called from across the room. You might want to see this. He had my laptop open and showed me a social media post from one of my cousins. Family isn't family anymore. Jacqueline put her parents in jail, and now she's living large in a fancy house bought with blood money. Karma's coming for her. Blood money. I laughed. They mean the money I managed to save, the money they didn't steal? Want me to reply? Helen said, cracking her knuckles in front of the keyboard. No need, I said, opening a box. Let them enjoy their drama. I've got better things to do. Like planning your housewarming party, Helen said, pulling out a design magazine. This place is perfect for entertaining. The doorbell rang again. This time it was Justin, holding a bottle of wine. Hope I'm not interrupting, he said. I brought a housewarming gift and some news. Good or bad? I asked. He grinned. Depends. How do you feel about speaking at next month's financial security conference? The board thinks your story could help people recognize financial abuse in families. I thought for a moment. There were so many people stuck in similar situations, feeling afraid, guilty, or trapped. I'll do it, I said. Someone has to show them there's a way out. Perfect, he said, handing me an envelope. Here's your new contract, with the raise we talked about. My phone buzzed again. It was an unknown number, but I recognized the prison's area code. Jacqueline. Mom's voice came through, weak and shaky. Please don't hang up. I need you to know. I'm sorry, Mom said. Are you sorry for what you did, or sorry because you got caught? Silence. That's what I thought, I said, keeping my voice calm. Goodbye, Mom. Wait, your father and I will have nowhere to go when we get out. Lauren can't help us. You're right. She can't. Because you taught her that it's easier to take than to work for something. I looked around at my new kitchen, where my friends were unpacking boxes and opening wine. But you taught me something too, I added. You taught me exactly who not to be. Then I ended the call before she could say anything else. You okay? Scott asked softly. Better than okay, I said, pulling wine glasses from a box. I'm free. To freedom, Helen said, raising her glass. And to karma finally doing its job, she added with a smile. Detective Victoria glanced at her phone. Speaking of karma, Lauren's being moved to state prison tomorrow. Want me to keep you updated? No, I said firmly. I don't need to know what happens to them anymore. Their story isn't my story. Then, what is your story? Scott asked, helping unpack the dishes. I looked around my kitchen. Sunlight was shining on the walls, my walls. My friends were beside me. I had a career I was proud of, one that valued honesty, not lies. My story, I smiled. It's just beginning. And this time, I'm the one writing it. Well then, Helen said, lifting her glass again. To new beginnings. And to Jacqueline, she added, the woman who proved that sometimes the best revenge is living well and keeping an eye on your bank accounts. Detective Victoria winked. We all laughed. The sound filled my home, my real home. A place built on truth, not lies. On strength, not guilt. On independence, not control. Outside, a truck passed by, carrying away my parents' repossessed furniture to be sold at auction. But I didn't look. I was too busy deciding where to hang my art, picking out paint colors, and making this space truly mine. They say home is where the heart is. But sometimes, home is where your heart is finally free. So, Helen said, opening her tablet. About that housewarming party, I grinned. Show me what you've got in mind. This time, every decision would be mine. Every choice would be clear. Every dollar would be earned. And it felt absolutely perfect.